You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome. How are you today? How are you handling the hard? And how many of you listening are just so freaking done with hard? In fact, when was the last time you heard yourself think that, say that to a trusted friend, family? I am so done with all of this hard. If I have one more hard thing happen, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't do hard. I hear this all the time. I said it myself, and I want to talk about it today. Not to tell you that you're wrong for feeling it, because you're absolutely not. You are exhausted. What you have been carrying for so long is real. It's heavy. Honestly, it would bring anybody to their knees. And I want to ask you something. And before you really answer it, just sit with this for a minute. What does done with hard actually mean to you? Like, if you were to close your eyes and imagine that version of your life, what does it look like? What are you doing? And what do you finally get to feel? If you're done with the hard, what stops? I want you to think about that for a minute, even if you have to hit pause. If I am done with hard, what does that look like today? Because what I've noticed when I ask this question, I usually get, well, I want to stop being tired. I want to stop being the one who does everything. I want to stop grieving. I want to stop being triggered. I want kids to be okay. I want to feel like myself again. And sometimes underneath all of that, what they really mean is, I want this to have not happened to me. I so get that. God, I get that. I have been there. The reason why I think it feels so hard is not because you're not doing enough of something, or you're missing something, or that you're doing healing wrong. It might be because you are still living inside a story that someone else wrote for you. I think until we pick up the pen, metaphorically and perhaps literally, till you actually own what happened and what it means, who you are because of it, the hard that we just want to go away, be done with, doesn't really go anywhere. Just keeps living in your body, keeps living in your choices, in the way that you talk, the way that you talk to others about your story. Today, I want to talk about what it means to take your story back, because done with hard doesn't start with hard ending. I know. Wouldn't that be nice? It doesn't. It starts with you finally stepping into this radical honesty and truth with ourselves of what the heart actually was. Let's talk about what taking your story back actually looks like, because I think we throw that phrase around, own your story, tell your truth, and it sounds good. It sounds like something you put on a coffee mug, but when I work with women, I have found that most of them have never actually done it. Not really, not in the way that it lands, at least. When I'm working with couples that are navigating the therapeutic disclosure process, one of the things that my betrayed partner will do is work on her impact letter. Part of that experience is her identifying the impacts of her partner's choices in every area of her life, formulating her story. When we do it in a formal therapeutic disclosure process, as part of how a couple eventually gets to a shared, honest account of what happened on both their sides, that both are standing in the same reality instead of two different ones. That's really, really powerful, necessary work. Many of you, like me, never got that and probably won't get that before that impact is shared with her partner. She has to write it out. She has to own it and write out her own impact, not for him, not for her therapist, not for her coach, but for her. What I have seen over and over again is that is the one part of a disclosure that oftentimes gets ignored or pushed back, avoided. It brings up the hard. They don't want to look at the hard. They don't want to feel all of that all over again. It's oftentimes one of the pieces that gets delayed. When you're exhausted already and done with the hard and you just want to feel better, it's easy to share your story like it's a highlight reel. Well, we tried counseling, didn't work out, got divorced. When you're telling person after person, your attorney, your friends, your family, like I get it. That shorthand highlight reel can keep you from really having to actually feel the weight of the reality of your story in detail every time. But that shorthanded way is going to cost you. It also keeps your story at arm's length. A story that you're holding at arm's length isn't your own. It's a story that you're managing. Part of the grief process, part of allowing grief to move through you is pulling that story a little closer and letting those pieces be felt, validated by you. I wanted everybody that I talked to validate me, my story. When I would share the latest drama, the latest hard, I can't believe he did this. You'll never guess what happened next. I would share the story, what people were saying back to me, their responses and their validation, their acknowledgement of how wild and crazy and asinine and the idiocy, like all of it, it felt so validating. It felt like relief, but ultimately, I was still needing that external validation and keeping my story at arm's length because it was being told for that rather than me owning that for myself. Really getting into it was more venting, right? It wasn't processing. What I want to offer you today is why writing it out in as much detail as you can hold what happened to you, what you found out, what you lived through, what you've lost, not just that highlight reels sanitized version, the real one. I want you to write what it did to your body. I want you to write what it did to your sense of self. I want you to write what you gave up, what you fought for, and how long you fought, what you endured along the way, what you survived. I want you to write about the nights that you couldn't sleep and the mornings that you had to get the kids to school anyways, the moments that you smiled at things when you were dying inside, the version of yourself that you lost somewhere along the way. And I want it to come out without any editing for anyone else's comfort or that thought of, well, if someone read this, they would think I'm being dramatic, or they would say, no, this isn't for anybody else. This isn't for your posterity. No, this is just for you. The second thing is seeing it. There's something that happens when you read your own words back to yourself. So going back to when I do this with clients in a therapeutic disclosure, my client's written out her statement. It's pages and pages of her words, her reality, her impact in every area of her life. Without fail, when we're in that room and she's reading it out loud, I notice every time that there is a part of her that is almost disconnected, not in a dissociative way, but she's reading it for herself. And the emotion that comes as she is listening to herself say those words out loud is something that it's hard to describe, but I'm picking up in that moment her own validation to her own impact. And it's quite remarkable to be in that space, supporting my client in that way. But I've realized how important it is for us who have experienced this and who have not really written out our impact to give ourselves that gift when it's in your own writing. Now, a lot of my clients will type it. I hand wrote mine and typed it. I wrote it out first. There's something cathartic about my handwriting, my words on a page in front of me. There's a lot of tears when my clients do this, not because it's new information. They have known it all, but because seeing it laid out like that makes it undeniable in a way that wasn't before. There's something in that recognition that I think is actually the beginning of relief. Not because I think it stops hurting in that moment, but what I think is really going on is that we stop fighting with ourselves about whether or not it was real. It was real. It's right there on the page, and you're the one that wrote it. The third thing is speaking it, even just to yourself. This is the one that I think surprises people the most, like I was saying. When it starts to come out of the mouth out loud and you hear yourself say those words, even if you're sitting on the floor in your room with your long length mirror, staring at yourself, reading to yourself your impact letter in your private space, I want you to read it in your own voice because there's something about your nervous system hearing your own voice speak your own truth that is different from anything else. It's different than thinking about it. All of you might be like, I know my impact. I think about it every day. This is different. It's doing something different. It's shifting something different. It's landing different. It's validating different. It's healing something different. In the somatic work that I do with clients, we talk a lot about the body as the place where unexpressed story lives. The bracing, the armoring, the hypervigilance, the tension that can't seem to shake, even when things are genuinely calmer now. A lot of that is the story that never got spoken. Speaking it, even privately, even just for yourself, is how you begin to release it from the tissue in the body. This isn't about reading it to your ex. You don't have to share it with anybody. This is just between you and your story. Here's why I wanted to bring this up today. Next week, I have Megan Norris joining me in a conversation, and she's a divorce coach also. We're talking a little bit about owning your story. But I got to thinking about how so many women will say, I'm done with the hard, Amie. And I believe you. I absolutely believe that you are so done with the hard. Also, want to ask you, have you ever actually named the hard? Because my guess is a lot of you are managing the hard, trying to manage the hard or surviving the hard. We're summarizing the hard when we're telling people what happened. What I want to encourage you to do in this episode is name it, write it down, and hear yourself say it out loud. In my experience, done with hard often arrives a lot faster when the hard finally gets to be real. When your body stops spending all of the energy keeping your story to safe distance and you just let it be true. Sometimes we are trying to do that toxic positivity thing. If I just stay positive, if I just stay focused on, all of the good things, then the hard will be easier. Not that positivity and gratitude aren't true principles, but if they are to bypass this process, then it's not going to actually help. We have to let our body also tell the story and let it be as big as it actually was. I'll say to my clients in session, even though through the modalities that I use in somatic healing, we can put a clamp on the fire hose, so to speak, where we're not processing and it's flooding, where it just feels like it's too much, it's going to kill us. There's a way to titrate that and process, like we're just, again, putting a clamp on the fire hose and we're just slowly letting it out. That is healthy processing. You don't need to flood the part of the brain that's responsible for that. I'll say trauma also has to rear its ugly head. And we can make and create a safe container to do that. It's what I do every day, where we can allow that to come out without apology, without judgment, without shame, blame. Otherwise, we stay stuck. So next week when Megan comes on and we talk about owning your story, what it does and how it changes things, the way that she looks at it through the lens of the quantum physics and what it means for your reality going forward. I want you to arrive at the conversation having already done something, having already started to maybe pick up the pen, because the story is yours. It has always been yours. The moment you claim it, really, really claim it, I think is the moment that everything starts to shift around all of the hard that I think you are so deserving to be done with. Let's go back to what I asked you in the beginning. What does done with hard actually look like for you? When you closed your eyes and imagined it, I want to go with you there now. You said, maybe I want to stop being tired. Let's look at that one, because tired has layers. Some of that tired is absolutely practical. You are doing the work of two people, and that genuinely is exhausting. And that's not just in your head or something that you think your way out of, but some of that tired, that's what it costs to keep your story at a distance every single day. That's what it's costing, I think, to manage it, to function around it. When you stop spending energy holding the story back, when it lands, when it gets to be true, then that particular tired has somewhere to go. Maybe when you thought about how you'd answer that question, you said to yourself, I just want to stop being the one who does everything. And I so hear that. I also want to ask you, does part of you believe that if you were fully healed or fully okay, that the doing everything would stop? Because that one might need its own honest look as well. Some of that is your actual life right now. And some of that is a story about what you feel like you have to do or what you deserve or whether you're allowed to ask for help, whether anyone will show up, whether you're worth someone showing up for. That's not a nervous system question. That's a worth and value and lovability question. And I think that's worth just noticing, really going a little bit deeper there. I'm also thinking about the episode a while ago with Terry Cole and how many of you might be thinking that you have to do everything and believing that you have to do everything and you're over functioning and you're really just over functioning for other people and it's exhausting you. So I think there's some pieces to that. I have to do everything that might be worth diving into a little bit deeper. This is where having someone help reflect things back to you can be really, really helpful if you're not working with someone. Maybe you answered that question by saying you want to stop grieving. And I know you do. I know that can be exhausting and feel like never ending. Grief doesn't actually stop faster when you try to outrun it, though. It stops or it softens, which I think is a little bit more honest, when it finally gets to be felt all the way through, when it moves through you. Like if your body is a tunnel and you think about how often we might be creating blocks and stops to that grief, it really needs to move through us. The impact work with that impact letter that I talked about, I think that is part of how grief moves. You write it, you see it, you speak it. The grief that's being lived in your body as tension and bracing and hypervigilance starts to find another way out. Think a real way out. Maybe the answer, one of your answers to that question that I asked in the beginning is, I want to stop being triggered. I'm so tired of these triggers. I want to feel like myself again. That one is so deep and so valid. The triggers don't stop because time passes. I wish someone would have told me that a lot earlier. They stop when your nervous system finally gets enough evidence that the story is over and you are your own source of safety. You're the one telling your story now. It's not being written externally and we're believing it. That impact work, the writing, the speaking, I think this is also part of how you give your nervous system that evidence where you're not just trying to think your way into safety. You're showing your body the story has shape, a beginning, a middle, and what you're writing and choosing to be the end. Then I think the answer that runs underneath all of those, I want this to never happen to me. I think that one deserves some space to sit with just for a minute. to imagine and wish that this would have never happened. I think that one is grief in its purest form, and it is so human and it is so understandable. I'm not going to tell you to let that one go or reframe it or find the lesson in it. Not today. I think today I just want to say, I know you didn't want this. I know you would undo it if you could. I know there is a version of your life that you had in your mind that looked nothing like this one. And also, I want to say this with so much compassion. That wish that it never happened, that wish can become the very thing that keeps you from owning the story that did. Because if we are still living in the gap between the life that you wanted and the life that you have, you can't fully plant your feet in the one that's actually yours. And your story, the real one, the hard one, the one that you lived, that is the one that has power. That is the one. When you own it, write it, see it, speak it, it becomes the foundation for what you are building now. Done with hard does not start when hard ends. It starts when you stop being at war with the fact that it happened. That is the beginning. And I think our conversation with Megan next week is going to further show you how it's possible. To me, I think that is the real taste of done. You are the chooser in your life. And this week, I'm inviting you to be a truthful witness to your own story because you deserve to have someone tell the truth about what you went through. And that someone gets to be you because you can. Take care, everybody.